It takes bravery to, in a sense, to step into the unknown because you don't know what you're going to feel in any given moment unless you're managing yourself. But to let whatever is there be there, it's a real act of bravery.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I am your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I have a very special guest. You may recognize him for multiple different movies, but he's actually transitioned into doing his life work and teaching us how to master the moment, to master our nervous system, and to master how we show up in the world, not just for our health, but for our relationships and the work that we want to do in the world. If we could choose the states of our nervous system, the state of our energy, recognizing we could transform fear into faith, we can transform how we actually show up in the world. And that not only achieves longevity and performance in our own life, but it allows us to be who we want to be, accelerating our success out in the world as well. Now, before we get into the podcast, let me first invite everybody who is new to the podcast right here on the show. This is a place where every week I either get to share a little bit of my own tips and tactics or bring in thought leaders from all around the world on health, longevity, biohacking, relationships, all these tools to get you and yourself and your family members into what I call the Thrive state, the energetic state of being, of optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. If you are a returning listener, if this podcast has given you value over the years, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, share this podcast with your friends and family members, and leave us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. That is going to allow the show to grow. And as a free gift, I want to give you free digital access to the digital version of me. This is a version where you can chat with me or connect with me on video absolutely for free by going to mythrivestate.com/biohack. Also get free longevity and biohacking resources at thrivestatestarter.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. Now, on to today's podcast. In a world that is constantly pulls us out of the moment, puts us in our head into moments of flight or fight, the actor and teacher Josh Pais has spent decades mastering the art of being fully here. In this episode of the Thrive State Podcast, we explore how to ground into the present, how to regulate our nervous system, and even play with fear, transforming it to uncertainty into creativity. Josh shares how presence isn't just a performance skill, it is a life skill that reconnects us with our aliveness, our intuition, and the flow of the unknown. If you ever wanted to stop overthinking and just start being, this conversation is your roadmap to coming home to yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with myself and Josh Pais.
Josh Pais, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here. I'm a fan.
Oh, well, I am a fan myself. I think so much of our work actually overlaps where we find our presence and how we get to choose beyond our initial reactions. I think not only produces the life that we want, but produces the health that we want as well. So we're going to dive into your work because I do believe there's lots of overlaps. But before we do so, there is a segment of the show called The 5 to Thrive. I know you're going to thrive on this segment of the show, you being an actor and all. 5 quick questions, 30 seconds max.
What?
1,000 points each.
Wow.
And if you do win the 5 to Thrive, you get a healthy, nutritious meal on me the next time we meet in person.
Wow.
My question to you, Josh Pais.
Yes, I'm ready
to lose your mind and play the 5 to Thrive.
I'm ready.
Question number 1 is, what promise do you want to give to this audience by the time they are done listening to our conversation?
My promise to you that are listening is that I'm going to give you a different perspective on how to experience your body and how to experience emotions that has the potential, if you jump in with it, to completely transform your life, to give you more energy, and to give you access to your creativity.
Amazing. 1,000 points there. Question number 2 is, outside of the energy and creativity, what are 3 potential outcomes learning this skill can provide anyone, whether they be in business, whether they be in the arts, or whether they just want to reach the next level of themselves?
For all of those categories, we all have an audience. And whether it's an audience of one, your loved one, loved ones, or you in front of thousands of people. And I'm going to give you tools to connect to yourself that will allow the audience to connect to you in a profound way.
Amazing. 2,000 points. He might win the 5 to Thrive. Question number 3.
Come on.
Is, what did Josh dream of being as a child?
I dreamt of being an actor.
Amazing.
I really did. Somewhere around 9 years old, I dreamt of being an actor.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into that in a second. Question number 3 is, what one book, phrase, or quote entered your life and then completely shifted how you saw the world?
I would say The Untethered Soul.
Michael Singer, my favorite.
Love his stuff, and it was just one of the first books that I read years ago to make us aware that we have thoughts going constantly.
And it might not be us necessarily.
What's that?
And it might not be us that's thinking them or whatever.
It's hardwired in there, and it's not helpful. The majority of it, I'm not talking about inspirational ideas, but that endless chatter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
4,000 points. And to win the 5 to Thrive, how does Josh Pais want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who inspired people to access their creativity, to use these tools to really help humanity dealing with living in a human body. And I think so much of the problems that are happening in the world are an extension of not knowing how to live in a human body, particularly when there's different sets of experiences in it.
5,000 points. Boo, 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 boo. Free meal on me the next time we connect in person. And I do hope we connect in person, because I do think we share a lot of similarities. Me as a kid growing up, I was a boat refugee from Vietnam, and too wanted to be an actor. But who I saw in front of me and what was represented in the media were just caricatures of Asian people. So I didn't necessarily felt like that was possible for me at the time. But the world has changed, and it's still not too late to pursue that dream. Although I do think my art is less in acting other people's roles rather than maybe sharing a transmission from stage as I do. But as I look at
but it's very close, I think, what you do.
Right.
It's like you're a freestyle improviser with a structure and a message.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to dig into your childhood before we dive into, how you came to your committed impulse methodology.
Okay.
Your dad is a physicist that worked with Albert Einstein and the Oppenheimer project.
Oppenheimer, Niels Bohr. All of
And I believe your mom was like a poet and artist.
A poet, painter, total bohemian, free spirit. Yeah.
So what was that dynamic like at home? And then as a child growing up, seeing sort of almost like the two brains working there, how did that influence your upbringing? And what were your father's thoughts and your desires to become more of an artist rather than a scientist?
My father, I was very interested in animal behavior, and he got me connected with a lot of the leading animal behaviorists of, when I was actually in high school. And I assisted on different things, and he was very excited that I was going, interested in science, which I am. But I just knew it wasn't for me. And initially, when I told him I wanted to be an actor, I think he said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But as he saw my commitment and my passion to it and why I think it's such an important element to bring to the world, that the art form that comes with acting, he really supported me. And as he started to see me in different things, in Broadway shows and movies, and he became incredibly supportive. But in terms of the two different mindsets, well, my parents, they were so radically different. They were good at making me, and then they were like, later. So they were so they were, they divorced when I was 3, and my mom lived in Alphabet City, which at the time it's really the Lower East Side or the East Village, but it was Avenue A, B, C, D. And it was the most dangerous part of New York City. It was a drug world, but it was also full of artists that could afford to live there, like my mom.
Mm.
And so everything was out in the open. Everything was raw. People on the street just completely expressed themselves. And basically, the police at that time just tried to not let the chaos of Alphabet City extend further into the city. But it was just a wild place. If you lived there, you had a lot of protection, but anybody coming in from the outside world, was putting their life in their hands. My dad lived on the Upper East Side, which was at the time very posh area. And he was very structured, very literal. He was also playful, but it was much more things were in a container in terms of how things were done. And so early on, it was sometimes shocking, the differences that I would, go between these two worlds. But I am so grateful that I got to be exposed to those two different modalities. And I really feel that even with my acting, certainly with my teaching, that it is such a combination of science and pure creativity. So it was just the perfect place for me to become who I am.
I appreciate that. And, now that I do more of the work that is centered around remembering our heart and soul, I can appreciate the medical background I got to this place, but also see the different viewpoints and perspectives on how to blend art and science together. So much of what I talk about in my keynote is, yes, we have the science of longevity, but this art of living, the energy of living, the feeling, the emotions of how we approach life, that actually turns into signals that speaks to our mitochondria and our DNA.
Yeah.
I digress there, but what I'm really interested in knowing now is I think your childhood had you maybe prepare on sensing these different emotions, particularly the chaos you saw where your mom lived. But you're someone who had this dream of becoming an actor. This is something you desired to do.
Yeah.
But along that journey, you also faced some debilitating fears during auditions and things like that.
Absolutely.
What were the steps of understanding that fear and being able to work with that to lead you to the work that you're doing now?
Well, as you said, when I started out, I had so much fear, so much anxiety, so many, doubts, thoughts, can I even do this? One night, when I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I remembered something that my dad had told me when I was 6, when I was trying to understand what he did, because I knew what other kids' dads did, but he wrote on this enormous floor-to-ceiling blackboard in his office these things that he called calculations, but he wasn't making anything. I didn't get it. And so I really, wanted to get to the bottom of what he did. And he said to me, do you see that table that you're sitting at? And I was like, yes. He said, do you see your knee? Yes. And he said, the smallest part of that table and the smallest part of your knee are the same things, atoms. And that's what I explore, the building blocks of the universe. And, he picked up his briefcase and headed out. And I was like, wow, everything's atoms. But so then back to this night of disaster, of panic. And I started to think, well, if my body is made out of atoms, then emotions must be connected to atoms. And I experimented starting to feel anxiety, for example, as it actually was, as the actual energetic pattern. I started to feel like, well, how are the atoms moving that are signaling something that I call anxiety or frustration? Like with frustration, like it was almost like a pounding energy on the inside of my ribs. With anxiety, it felt like the atoms were just in this chaotic pattern. And, in sadness, it felt like they were moving downward, like pulling, like increased gravity downward. But what started to happen was I stopped judging the sensations as good or bad. When I was feeling this, instead of going anxiety, and we're culturally trained to believe that anxiety is bad, which I disagree with. But so when this would start, I would be like, I would use it to create with. I would get on the train of that energetic pattern. And that just opened up. As soon as I started doing that, I started getting acting jobs. And it's all about converting this to creative fuel. And in the second chapter of the book, I talk about the greatest myth of our time. And the greatest myth of our time is that there are good sensations and bad sensations, good emotions and bad emotions. And we are designed to feel this full range of emotions. But there's, at some point, this belief came out that if you feel fear, it's bad. If you feel calm, it's good. And then everything's on one side or the other. And by freeing myself of that, when I was feeling, quote unquote, a bad emotion, I could still create fully. I could still be present fully because it was just energy.
That is beautiful. One, to maybe step aside from the emotions, not attaching yourself to the emotions, I think is very helpful. And as you mentioned, feeling the full range of emotions, I just wanted to let the listeners really be present to what life is. The emotions is how we get to experience life of all the fullness.
Yeah.
We avoid any particular type of emotions. Not only do we recognize that we put ourselves in a consciousness to maybe feel that emotion over and over again, not let it pass through, because what we resist persists. But the other thing is, if we try to shut ourselves off from feeling maybe a bad emotion, that ability to feel the richness, the fullness, the love of these more pleasant emotions also gets truncated as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't like cut out one segment. We can't cut out, if you don't let yourself feel frustration to like only to level 5, then you can only feel joy to level 5.
Right.
The more you can it's just, this is what it is to be in a human body.
Amazing.
It's like it's moving constantly.
So tell me a little bit now about this committed impulse thing. Okay. I do want to share a phrase that I think would be very helpful that I live by, and such a powerful phrase for myself. But how did you come up with the methodology, and kind of what are the core ethoses that this methodology is intended to impart in others?
Well, it came about very organically. When I would do plays or, early on, I would have moments where I was completely present.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You can find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
I would have moments where I wasn't judging the other actor, where I wasn't judging my performance. And I was just fully there. And then it would stop. And then I'd be back to judging. And so I went on a 2-year journey training with people from all over the world that were experimenting, exploring spontaneity. And because I knew spontaneity was a key thing to life and to creativity, and particularly for an actor. And after this journey, people just started asking me to teach. And I had no intention to teach. And then NYU asked me to teach. Just teach what you've learned. That's how it began. And I really was experimenting. How can these actors come to a scene that they've memorized, but to actually allow that scene to unfold because it's just recognize that moment has never happened before. And how can we let that scene unfold in the unknown so that every time we do the scene, it's different? And so it's all about teaching how to be completely out of your head, how to lose your mind, and if you go in your mind, how to come right back, to increase your connection to your body, and to bring spontaneity, aliveness, creativity to everything that you do. And in the beginning, I was only training actors. And then over the years, people from all professions started coming because they wanted to get out of a rut. A lot of doctors, and these were, I would say, very good doctors, that they had this awareness that they were seeing that they would have an interaction with a patient, and then the patient would leave this interaction almost less than when they started it. And they realized that they were on autopilot and they weren't really opening up to the moment of dealing with that patient. And this helped them to really be present and connect to why they wanted to be a doctor in the first place. Also, lawyers who are doing their closing arguments, they would notice that the jury would be checking out and falling asleep to some extent as they'd just be like, nodding out. And they realized that, with the work that we did, that they were closing themselves off. They thought they had to present with some ideal state. They thought they had to get themselves into some modality, but it wasn't their truth. And the more that they spoke right from their truth, which is really what Committed Impulse is about, is to speak from your truth in that moment, they found that the jury woke up and they were like, oh my God, this person's really speaking to me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. In my work in neuroscience, we are beginning to understand a portion of the brain called the default mode network. It's a
Hmm.
very primitive part of our brain and nervous system, and many neuroscientists call it our ego. You know, it picks up, epigenetic inheritance from our ancestors that
Yep.
might have been hurt in some capacity. And
Yep.
we as children, when we don't feel loved, safe, or connected, starts to build these walls up on who we think we need to be out in the world. And
Yep.
all of these, the consciousness of living in that space is that of fear and survival. And
Yep.
that becomes the default.
Yep.
That becomes a thing that is present when we're not choosing to truly be conscious and present and in control of our life, which is why I love this whole philosophy that you bring about committed impulse. It brings to me a quote from, famous physicist and physician, Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl,
Mm.
who saw his mother and sister being murdered, his father being starved to death, his friends and family members tortured. But he still said this, that between stimulus and response, there's a space.
Mm.
In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So just like you were saying with the doctors, with the lawyers, if they're in their head, they're not present. But if they can pause and ask themselves how they really want to show up as themselves, as this version of themselves that wants to help another person, then all of a sudden they shift the energy.
Yeah.
And, I think many people could find a way to pause, to ground themselves, to see the parts of their brain that's not them, that's just running in the background
Yeah.
and choose. And you've got a very powerful set of words. I'm back
Yes.
as a moment of wake up. Can you talk to us about that phrase and how you
Absolutely.
apply it into your life?
So, in any interaction or when you're by yourself, there may be a time where your mind has dominated you. You can be in a conversation and you're thinking about later, I've got to really, what am I going to, and you've missed completely what's happening right now. And so, when that initial part starts, you don't even know you've left. And then there's a moment, you know, where, your partner might go, hey, or you catch it yourself, which is even better. As soon as you're aware that your mind has just taken you, you say, I'm back. And in my classes, people say it all the time because we're not trying to get anywhere. So you say, I'm back, and follow that up with taking a breath, feel the energetic charge in your body, and also connect to your immediate environment. And I experiment with people, having them see whatever's in front of them in terms of color, texture, lightness, darkness, and the space around it, so that you're seeing how a baby or a dog might see, like literally seeing what's there. Because there's a part of our mind that wants to categorize every experience so that we feel very little. By really connecting to what's there, it quiets this. And these are all, after I'm back, it's 3 techniques to shift the volume of what your attention is on. So it's breath, to feel the body, and connect to the immediate environment.
I have a phrase I teach, a framework that I teach called impact.
Mm.
And it's I am, and the P is the pause, the A is awareness, C is choice, and then T is that take action, which I find to be so helpful
That's
because
great.
when circumstances, when people, when other things kind of trigger you, you could find yourself judging that experience from the lens of your ego, from fear and survival. But when you notice that, you can use a technique like the breath. You say, I'm back. And then the A is to have awareness. Where are you feeling it? Really feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
are there some stories, some old beliefs that's driving this part? Is
Mhm.
it a part of your inner child that's coming out? And then you choose to be present, to know
Yeah.
you are safe, loved, and connected.
Mhm.
And then you take action from that place. And so, I like to enter every room with that kind of mindset, and every conversation with that kind of mindset, so
That's
that
beautiful.
at least know I have the intention of showing up a particular way in that moment of life.
Yeah. And that takes some bravery.
Yeah.
It takes bravery to, in a sense, to step into the unknown because you don't know what you're going to feel in any given moment unless you're managing yourself. But to let whatever is there be there, it's a real act of bravery. The rewards are so immense, so immense. It just, in terms of having an audience connect with you, in terms of, I mean, tell me what you think. I think if you stay connected to all the vibrational frequencies in the body without managing and suppressing them, it's like that's what the body is asking for. That I would think generates optimal health because you're allowing this charge, this system to operate at its optimum.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I believe we are here to, it's a gift to be able to experience the spectrum of all these emotions. That
Yeah,
truly what life is. And I think if you can allow yourself to experience all of it, life just becomes so rich. And no longer do you have to be someone you're not. Because
yes,
if you feel like you need to achieve an accolade or a certain amount in your bank account or whatever it might be to feel enough, you're running away. You're not seeing the love, the gift that is life that's in front of you. And therefore, if you start to feel that, your mind like, oh, I want to escape from that, then all of a sudden you're just basically trapped in this default mode.
yes,
And you can't feel anything else because this thing feels so real. And I don't believe emotions are good or bad. However, if you're trying to run away from a negative emotion and your brain thinks that that's real and it's trying to solve you not getting hurt, you're basically running in this cycle where that emotion never gets to leave. And
yeah,
so emotions like anxiety, worry, regret, fear, all those things are great to feel. But if that becomes your emotional home, then you're actually in a state where your nervous system is in flight or flight. That
absolutely.
and actually speaks to your DNA, which starts turning on genes of inflammation, which will turn off genes of your immune system. That's when you get dis-ease in your body.
Yeah. And one thing that I've discovered working with people, for 30 years now, is that any sensation, if you fully experience the purity of that sensation, will shift in 7 to 12 seconds.
Mm.
If you fully connect to it and don't analyze it, don't try to understand why am I feeling this, you'll go on to the next sensation and the next sensation, and that needs to be the guide track, not this. This, like you're saying, will lead to all kinds of locked in cycles that don't serve you. But the answer is just, our creativity, all this charge is in the body, and we just want to honor it. And like I said, that takes bravery because we're so culturally trained to believe that there's certain good things and certain bad things.
What is your take on fun and joy as it pertains to energy and as it pertains to how to access presence?
I mean, a lot of the book is about bringing more fun into your life. And if you're having fun, you're present. I mean, it's that simple. You can't, because if you're having fun, it means that these 4 access points of I'm back, you're fully there, you're connected to your body, you're connected to your impulses, and you're just fully alive. And I think it is so essential. It's just, and it's the best. So my life is, I have the fun door open, as much as possible. Sometimes I'll get in my head but as soon as I snap out, it's like, this is the place to be. We need this globally. We all have the ability to have fun. And I think when you're having fun, it also allows you to see whoever you're having fun with fresh eyes. You're seeing them as they are in that moment. And that's something that we really need to practice as a species right now.
Oh, I can't agree more. I'd like for certain people to step away with maybe some tools. And I know one of these things, as we talk about fear, many people, no matter whether they are an athlete, an actor, a keynote speaker, running a business, runs into the fear of public speaking. Actually, the number one thing that people fear most.
Yes.
With your methodology, how do you coach someone who feels paralyzed by these nerves when they have to speak publicly?
Well, they're paralyzed because they are suppressing what they're feeling. If you are, and you're going to have to take my word for this because it's contrary, but if you are, say, backstage and you're about to go in front, see the back of the curtain and feel exactly what's going on in your body. And chances are you're going to have a lot of vibration, because when anyone extends themselves further out into the world, further out into their career, further out into a blind date, whatever it may be, the body is going to vibrate at a higher frequency. But if you can look at that higher frequency as it's your body is giving you energy for this action, like fear has there's so much power in that energetic force. And the game is to, I always say, like, ride it, don't hide it. You got to ride that charge. If you go out there and you ride that charge and you're stepping into the unknown, people are going to be like, what's going to happen? Who is this? As opposed to, I feel this fear and I'm going to muscle down and then I'm going to go present. These are my key points that I want you to understand, as opposed to, like, feel this charge and you need to be with you and be with them. And that takes bravery, but that's what I teach people in class, and it completely transforms their life. And there's no ideal state to be in. There's no ideal state to be in order to publicly speak, in order to act. And if we can get that, experience that, and that's what I, teach in the book and in my classes, you're just free. There's no problem. It's all juice. It's all juice to play with.
That is amazing. That is the juice of life. And I wanted to thank you for really giving us access, because I do believe losing your mind is one of the best access points we are to truly reclaiming and living life. Now, before I ask you my last question, where do people find you, your work, and how do they get a copy of the book that has just come out?
The book is available everywhere. Certainly, all the booksellers online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, every place. And it's super easy to find. It's waiting for you. There's a copy out there that has your name on it. Go get it. And with me, my website, committedimpulse.com, has tons of information. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Josh Pais, JoshPais. And you see me on the street, say, Josh, what's up? What are you feeling right now? And I will tell you what I'm feeling. And I'm going to ask you what you're feeling. And, and that's where you find me.
Amazing. With everything that you've done so far, you've done so much personal work. You've, been in the industry. What has been your best medicine?
Remember to breathe. Like, just, if things get a little chaotic, just breathe, but breathe to feel, not breathe to get rid of anything. Breathe to feel. See what's in front of you, and that opens up all the doors. It's really quite simple. And we have these very simple tools hardwired into us. And if we don't use them, this will dominate us. But we just want to use these natural tools, and that opens up everything.
Josh Pais, thank you for your gift, your wisdom, and for sharing your joy and fun with us today on the Thrive State podcast.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential, so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.